Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, proud to support the mission of KPBS and privileged to serve San Diego clients. Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, helping homeowners maintain drain, heating, and cooling systems since 1978. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marcos Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.
Good evening. It's Tuesday, July 7th. Thank you for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. Another day of near-record COVID-19 cases as San Diego enters 3 weeks of new restrictions. Today, county health officials reported 578 new cases. And after 3 days of no reported deaths, 12 people died. Today is the first day of closures for indoor operations at restaurants, tasting rooms, and other businesses. KPBS reporter Matt Hoffman says the move is affecting some places and their staff more than others.
Restaurants can still serve customers, but it has to be outside, so like using a patio or a parking lot, but some eateries don't have either.
You try to make your hay while the sun's shining. Well, the sun is definitely shining, but I'm not allowed to make any hay right now.
Guava Beach Bar and Grill owner Eric Christensen says he was making it work with recent restrictions requiring food with alcohol purchases and closing early at 10 p.m. Going back to just takeout, though, won't be easy.
Takeout's pretty tough. You know, I was down maybe 25-30% with the dine-in, which is doable. Takeout, I'll probably be down over 80%. So at some point, if we aren't allowed to put tables out front, we're going to have to weigh our options. Is it even worth it to do it?
San Diego officials are waiving permitting fees and fast-tracking applications for outdoor service. But along a busy Mission Boulevard with limited space, Christensen thinks his only option is to try and use the sidewalk out front.
Hopefully by next week we'll be able to have at least maybe 5 or 6 tables out front. As it stands today, we've got nothing going on, just doing takeout.
So no dine-in service for 3 weeks, and places like Guava Beach Bar and Grill are again having to make the tough decision to lay off staff.
My staff's down at least, cut by 50% now, and so then you got to figure out who wants to work, who's going to go back on unemployment, with that $650 incentive in there per week.
In March, April, May, when bars and restaurants received the initial order to close down to in-person dining, we received layoff notices for restaurants that mapped to almost 18,000 workers that had been impacted and lost their jobs, specifically in the restaurant and bar industry.
The San Diego Workforce Partnership says they're expecting to see layoffs again during this 3-week shutdown. Some argue that blanket closures for industries punishes those following the rules.
Is it fair? It is what it is. It's not for me to judge. It's definitely a disappointment as July is our busiest month of the year.
For restaurants in tourist hotspots, summer months can make or break their business.
Given our location here in Mission Beach, we're inundated with vacation rentals. So I'm much more seasonal than, say, a place that's downtown or in North Park or anything like that. So if I can't make my money over the 4 or 5 months over the summer with all the tourists out here, it's a lot harder in the off season, and we'll see.
Talk of COVID-19 restrictions hits close to home for Christensen.
Being that I just got off of quarantine for having COVID, I understand the severity of it out there.
Today, he's virus-free after quarantining at home, but now he's worried about his wife and daughter.
It's real, it's contagious, and it can affect anybody.
Christensen put in his application to use sidewalk space for dining yesterday and is waiting to hear back from the city. Matt Hoffman, KPBS News.
With new restrictions imposed by the state, San Diego Mayor Kevin Faulconer is making it easier for restaurants to set up outdoor dining wherever they can, including sidewalks.
I just signed an executive order that will waive regulations to help restaurants expand their services outdoors. This is important to preserve people's jobs and to preserve public safety. Public health experts have been clear. 2 key tools to help slow the spread of the virus are open air environments and physical distance. This executive order makes it easier for restaurants to do both.
The mayor's order waives permitting and parking requirements for the use of sidewalks and private parking lots as outdoor dining venues. Faulconer also recently announced a plan to waive fees and fast-track permits to help businesses expand onto street parking spaces, sidewalks, and parking lots. The City Council is expected to vote on it this month. Poway Mayor Steve Voss is also trying to help restaurants in his city with outdoor dining. KPBS reporter John Carroll shows us why the mayor calls his plan a win-win.
Not long after indoor dining was shut down in March, restaurants around San Diego began focusing on takeout and delivery, and those that could offered diners outdoor seating, taking up places where once people walked or parked cars. As you just heard, Mayor Kevin Faulconer is moving to make it easier for San Diego restaurateurs to seat people outside. In Poway, a similar idea is being cooked up. At tonight's City Council meeting, Poway Mayor Steve Voss will propose that the City Council make picnic tables available to the city's restaurateurs. At Kaminsky's Barbecue and Sports Lounge, diners are still enjoying meals on the patio, but co-owner Marcia Kaminsky is also expanding seating into the front portion of her parking lot. She appreciates the picnic table idea. She just wishes the city had talked to restaurant operators first.
I wish that maybe, and maybe they did, I don't know, would have maybe talked to some of the restaurant people to maybe see what maybe they needed.
If the City Council approves the mayor's proposal, a quick glance around the inside of the restaurant shows you why Marcia Kaminsky won't be taking the city up on their offer.
I have many tables in my restaurant and chairs that I can move outside, so it doesn't benefit me. It may benefit other restaurants, so I won't partake in it.
Kaminsky says as she and her fellow restaurateurs move forward into whatever the latest version of normal brings, Poway's restaurant owners and the city can and should work more closely together.
They need us. We need them. But maybe if we work a little more together, maybe we can come up with even better solutions, potentially.
Assuming Mayor Voss's proposal isn't tabled, the council will vote on the tables at tonight's meeting, which begins at 7. John Carroll, KPBS News.
Funding may be on its way to help child care providers reopen their doors. Today, the County Board of Supervisors voted to create a plan to spend nearly $50 million in COVID relief funds. Supervisor Nathan Fletcher proposed nearly half go to help child caretakers comply with safety rules. He says supporting providers is crucial to the region's economy.
This will be available to cover costs, including but not limited to staffing, supplies, business resilience, mortgage and rental assistance, or capital improvements related to outdoor areas.
The measure that passed 3-2 includes direction to fund COVID testing in schools and at the border. It also directs staff to look at how the money can go toward food service. That may include expanding a senior meal delivery program or supporting food banks. And summer vacation isn't giving much of a break to educators trying to figure out how to safely teach students when classes start up again in a matter of weeks. Today, the White House urges schools to open up, just as critics say, not so fast. Emily Schmidt has more from Washington.
Months after most schools closed due to COVID-19, there is a difficult lesson playing out: how best to reopen.
We want to reopen the schools. Everybody wants it. The moms want it, the dads want it, the kids want it. It's time to do it.
Vice President Mike Pence urged governors on a Tuesday call to prioritize reopening schools. It is a goal.
We put together a task force, 25 people, incredible expertise to put together the protocols to re-engage schools in the fall, if it is safe to do so.
Last week, the American Academy of Pediatrics recommended students go to classrooms rather than use remote learning. And Florida's education commissioner issued an order requiring all schools to reopen in brick and mortar fashion. A Florida lawmaker says that's the wrong call.
I think we're putting our children in danger. I think we're putting our teachers in danger. And I believe that we're putting our parents in danger.
Universities are laying out plans for fall. Harvard bringing back just 40% of undergraduates with all classes online. Princeton limiting fall semester residency to first year and junior classes. Immigration and Customs Enforcement says international students taking online-only classes might have to leave the country. Virtual education showing the potential for very real impacts. Emily Schmidt, KPBS News.
The U.S. Department of State says it will not issue visas to students enrolled in schools that are fully online for the fall semester. Visa requirements for students have always been strict, and coming to the U.S. to take online-only courses has been prohibited. Our partners at iNewsSource are reporting that teacher layoffs at Gompers Preparatory Academy in southeastern San Diego have been rescinded. The popular public charter school announced the decision yesterday, and last month, more than a third of the school's teachers had been cut because of financial problems linked to COVID-19. Gompers officials say a new state budget that promises financial help for schools allowed them to rescind the layoffs. Today, the San Diego City Council approved a measure for the November ballot that, if passed, would change how San Diego Unified School District board members are elected. KPBS education reporter explains how the changes increase neighborhood representation on the board.
Changing it from a citywide race to a district-only race may increase the number of people who are willing to put themselves out there.
Luana Richmond is running to represent Southeast San Diego's students and parents on San Diego Unified School Board. During the March primary, only residents in her community, Subdistrict E, were able to vote for her. But in the November election, school board members are elected on an at-large basis, and Richmond will need to win the support of voters throughout the city of San Diego, not just those in Subdistrict E. She said voters from outside the community should not be able to decide who represents the neighborhoods in Southeast San Diego.
You know, there are individuals in other districts that have this experience where they're working 2 or 3 jobs to support their families, but there's a high concentration of that in my district.
On Tuesday, the San Diego City Council voted unanimously to put a measure on the November ballot that would make the general election a district-by-district contest starting in 2022.
This is an extremely important issue in my community in particular, and you can tell that from the calls that we received. So it's been something that folks have been fighting for a long time. I'm very, very happy to support this today.
Sharon Whitehurst Payne, the incumbent in Subdistrict E, has benefited from the at-large system. In 2016, she finished second in the primary but won in the general election when all San Diego voters cast their ballots. Despite these outcomes, Whitehurst Payne said she's been an advocate for her subdistrict, especially during the pandemic.
I, as a voice, have been prolific in articulating what our needs are in terms of, take what happened with the food issue, what happened with the computer devices. I've articulated what needs to happen for our children to be represented in District E as well as throughout the district.
While it's too late for the 2020 election, Richmond says she hopes voters will make this change for fairer elections.
But it's not really about me, and it's not just about this election. There are going to be other elections in the future, and I think changing it from a citywide race to a district-only race may increase the number of people who are willing to put themselves out there.
Joe Hong, KPBS News.
San Diego City voters will decide whether the city needs more powerful civilian oversight of the police department. Today, the City Council voted unanimously to place a measure on the November ballot to dissolve the city's Community Review Board on police practices. It would be replaced with a new commission with the power to conduct independent investigations into police shootings, in-custody deaths, and complaints of officer misconduct. The reform has been in the works for years, but it gained new momentum during the recent wave of protests against racism and police brutality. Looks like we are getting a little bit of relief from the heat over the next 2 days. Justin Pavic has your forecast.
I hope everyone's having a great Tuesday. Over the course of the next couple of days, we'll begin to experience a change. Still into Thursday morning, looking at that marine layer, that onshore flow that will produce some coastal clouds, though later on Thursday and especially Friday, this will signal the start of a warming trend. And by the weekend, we are going to be talking about widespread heat, especially back over the interior, at which point, again, excessive heat watches go into effect. Again, this is Saturday morning right through Monday evening, again, as we look out to the east. All right, let's talk about conditions here first off of the short term. And again, for tonight, we'll be falling off to 62 Oceanside, San Diego 65, those coastal clouds back into the picture. And even for a time, some of the inland valleys can experience some patchy fog Wednesday morning, but it will not be lingering throughout a good chunk of the day. Mount Laguna tonight down to 58, against 79. Borrego Springs up to 110 tomorrow afternoon. San Diego 75, Oceanside tops off at 77. All right, so relatively tranquil heading toward Wednesday. Still have a little bit of a dip in the jet stream, so the major heat's not back just yet. But as this jet stream begins to bow back and lift off to the north, we're going to see an upper level high develop. And those are notorious for producing major heat. And that's going to be something that will be increasing day by day here late week and especially into the upcoming weekend. Meanwhile, through Wednesday, most of the fire danger is going to be out east as we talk about areas from Las Vegas back toward portions of Wyoming and western areas of Colorado. But notice the jet stream bumping back north here Thursday into Friday, and that's going to have the heat begin to expand its way back out. So you can see that at the coast. We're climbing back into the 80s. Lots of sunshine Friday and Saturday, less clouds. Inland also back into the low in the mid-90s. The heat building here Friday into the weekend. Mountainous terrain into the 80s. And over the deserts, we're going to be into the mid-1 Saturday into Sunday. For KPBS News, I'm meteorologist Justin Poway. Back over to you.
San Diego County's effort to flatten the coronavirus curve is failing, with a surge in cases since mid-June. This is happening as the county continues to ramp up its contact tracing program in hopes of slowing the spread. But KPBS investigative reporter Claire Trejo found it has some big limitations. Every day, Asma Al-Sabag goes to work and gives people bad news.
Hi, I'm calling from Mariella. And I'd say I'm calling because you were recently exposed to someone who tested positive for COVID-19.
Al-Sabag is one of nearly 500 contact tracers working for San Diego County. It's her job to find and notify people who were likely in contact with someone who's tested positive for the coronavirus.
They have to monitor their symptoms twice a day. They have to check for fever. We go through the whole list of symptoms. There's like fever, difficulty breathing, cough. There's a whole list that we go over with them and we send them out to them too. We encourage them not to do things like share utensils or share bedding, to wear face covers around each other.
Al-Sabag estimates she's made hundreds of phone calls, but all her hard work may not be having the desired effect. Cases have been surging in the county, with daily counts approaching 500 and the total tally over 15,000. Yet the county's contact tracers have only reached about 9,000 county residents who are identified as a close contact of someone with the virus.
The last time they were within 6 feet without a face covering for longer than 15 minutes.
Plus, the county does not know how many of the people contacted actually followed the public health order and went into quarantine.
It's turned out to be much more difficult to standardize across the state.
Andrea Lacroix is an epidemiologist at UC San Diego.
And to sew together from various institutions and make it happen. And
she and other epidemiologists say a regime of widespread wearing of face coverings, social distancing, testing, and contact tracing is the only safe way to slow the spread of the disease until a vaccine is available.
So I'm going to go ahead and give you a follow-up call at the end of your quarantine period, so that'll be June 14.
Back at her desk, the contact tracer Al-Sabag is working the phones again.
We're going to go ahead and release you. Does that sound okay? 9 out of 10 times the person's like, yes, I already know who it is, it's so-and-so.
That's because the person with COVID-19 is a family member or close friend. But other times, she's greeted with real anger.
They refuse to even listen or complete the interview until you tell them who the person, who infected them or who they were exposed to was, and we can't do that.
This is just one of the limitations on a contact tracer's power. They're not reaching all the people they need to reach. They can't force the people they do reach to give them information, and they can't force those who've been exposed to stay home. Jeff Johnson, the head of the county's contact tracing program, acknowledges the limitations.
If they are threatening to go to work, then, we will have to talk with them and kind of advise them otherwise.
If a person does develop symptoms or test positive for COVID-19, the county then has the authority to force that person into quarantine. And if the person refuses,
we have somebody from the county, in some cases, has been a sheriff's officer, actually physically issue it. And like I said, that's been very, very rare.
Okay, do you have any loss of smell or taste?
As for Alsabag, she plans to continue going to work and helping people through the challenging phone calls they received.
Until contact tracing is no longer a thing, probably when a vaccine comes out, I'm guessing.
Claire Trejo, KPBS News.
And coronavirus cases are rising sharply across the country as well as here in San Diego. KPBS science and technology reporter Shalina Chetlani says local researchers are innovating existing tools like ventilators to help ease the situation.
Ventilators are critical for treating severe coronavirus cases, but they can cost thousands of dollars and can be large and clunky. So a number of UCSD researchers thought, why not construct a ventilator that's a few $100s and can be put together quickly by hand? Lonnie Peterson is a UCSD physician.
We have devices in the ICU that are $200,000 respirators that meet these requirements, but we don't have enough of those. There are some very low-cost, low-tech respirators out there, ventilators out there that don't quite meet the requirements for this complicated disease.
The team was able to make this ventilator by removing parts like airflow sensors that are expensive while constructing a device that could still match the patient's breathing and airflow rate. James Friend is an engineer at UC San Diego.
Now, and there was the whole intent behind the design, really, is to make sure that even in resource-limited settings, even during a pandemic, you can get your hands on the parts and put one of these together. You can actually make one of these with parts that remain available even today.
It hasn't been approved for emergency use by the Food and Drug Administration, but researchers hope to get that approval soon. Shalina Chetlani, KPBS News.
The U.S. Environmental Protection Agency has given its first approval to disinfectants that kill coronavirus. 2 Lysol products are federally approved as effective against coronavirus. They are Lysol Disinfectant Spray and Lysol Disinfectant Max Cover Mist. The approval is based on lab testing that found when used on hard, non-porous surfaces, both products kill the virus 2 minutes after contact. And the FDA is warning that some hand sanitizers could be hazardous to your health. Mandy Gaither explains what to watch out for.
If you're using hand sanitizer to help slow the spread of COVID-19, you'll want to check the label. The FDA says it's seeing an increase in hand sanitizer products contaminated with potentially poisonous methanol, which can be life-threatening if ingested and toxic if absorbed through the skin. The agency says states have also reported cases of blindness, hospitalizations, and deaths in adults and children after drinking hand sanitizer products tainted with methanol. When using hand sanitizer, the FDA says to make sure the product contains ethanol, which is safe for topical use, not methanol. The FDA says some of the tainted products could still be in stores, although one brand has been recalled after the agency sent out a warning last month. The FDA says young children who accidentally drink hand sanitizer and adults who ingest it as a substitute for alcohol are the most at risk of poisoning and should seek immediate medical attention. For today's Health Minute, I'm Mandy Gaither.
And here's another look at today's top story. Another day of near-record COVID-19 cases. County health officials reported 578 new cases and 12 deaths. Today is the first day of state-enforced closures for indoor operations at restaurants, tasting rooms, and other businesses. San Diego Mayor Kevin Faulconer issued an order to waive permitting and parking requirements for the use of sidewalks and private parking lots as outdoor dining venues. Mexican-American actor Danny Trejo is probably best known for his character of Machete, but he has played nearly 400 characters in his 35-year career. KPBS cinema junkie Beth Accomando says a new documentary makes his life as riveting as any Hollywood movie.
All right, fellas, let's do this. My name's Danny Trejo. You might have seen me once in a while.
Desperado, Heat,
Dusk Till Dawn,
Con Air,
Machete. They make movies and stories about guys like Danny. Danny is that guy.
Inmate number 1 applies not just to the early roles Danny Trejo was cast in, but also to the reality of his time in prison.
When you're driving up that wall in Quinton and you see that gun tower right in front, you know that once you go in there, you're not coming out. This is the big house. The gas chamber's here.
But Trejo did get out. The film's a testament to the fact that change is possible. Trejo left prison, became a drug counselor, ended up on a movie set, and turned his iconic, intimidating demeanor into a Hollywood career. The film serves as his confessional.
My uncle was doing robberies and shooting dope. But God, man, it was like always had a car, always had money, and never had a sweat ring. When my Uncle Gilbert was on the run, he used to sneak into that window. That was before we had bars, before my mom lived alone, and so that was my room.
He reveals how he navigated challenging terrain, not always making the best choices, but ultimately finding success.
I made a promise to myself, start trying to do good. I became a drug counselor.
An opportunity to help somebody one night got him into his first movie.
Everything good that has happened to me has happened as a direct result of helping someone else. Everything.
Director Brett Harvey takes advantage of the access he has to Trejo's life and crafts an insightful, thoughtful, and beautifully executed portrait of this amazing person. Beth Accomando, KPBS News.
You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. Thank you for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. Have a great evening.
Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, proud to support the mission of KPBS and privileged to serve San Diego clients. Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, helping homeowners maintain drain, heating, and cooling systems since 1978. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marcos Shiley. And by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.